Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Right, so Kojo Baffoe is in the house, and I can say he's in the house because half your family is following you. Like, all sort of say, we'll be listening for the first time. I'm offended. Don't they listen every other day?
Well, the irony is that today, for the first time, my father is probably listening to this interview because he listens to your show. He's in Lesotho. And I talked to him this morning. He said to me, listen, I listen to SAFM. Are you on radio or something tomorrow? So,
well, I'd love it if your dad calls in, and I'll take that chance. Do you want to say hi to your son? 0891104207. And maybe share an anecdote about him. Maybe something along the line of when he was 10 or 12. This is what I could see in him that didn't make sense then, but obviously it made sense now because you can see where the career path is going.
Hindsight.
What do you want to tell your dad? I mean, any message to him?
Like my father, somebody I talk about quite a bit. I write about quite a bit, and also just in terms of my own experience as a father. For me, that has been the model to what it is to be a man, what it is to be an African man in a contemporary world. So, anything I could say to him, I have probably said to him. And if I haven't said it, I hope he knows.
I'm sure he does. All right. Kojo Baffoe with me, the editor of the Destiny Man magazine that comes out, every month, right?
Every other month.
Every second, every second month, indeed. So you want to chat to him? We can sort of do a chat about his life, so things about the magazine, things about his own career, all absolutely welcome. Besides his dad wanting to call, let me not exclude anybody else. If you want to say hi to him and you know him personally, that's great. If you don't know him and you want to ask questions, that's fine. If you have an anecdote to share, that's fantastic. If you just want to ask some questions that you need to pick his brain about, some advice, maybe to get into the media, that's also absolutely great as well. All those type of things as we chat about. First of all, your name is unusual, so let's talk about that.
My name is unusual here. If you go to Ghana, and I've had it where I'm sitting in a car in Accra, and the radio DJ is called Kojo, and his producer is Kojo, and the guest is Kojo. Okay. It's a Ghanaian name. It's a
and not like Kojo Amankwa, is that? But he spells it differently, right? It's Kojo Amankwa.
How does he spell it?
He spells it with a C, Coudjoe, something.
Yeah,
like
I think it might be Ivory Coast, West Africa, along that coast. But I mean, essentially, even within Ghana, my name, there's different spelling. So there's, Kodjo. But essentially, I'm a Monday-born boy.
Okay.
That's why I'm Kojo.
Okay. So a Monday. And the Baffoe?
Baffoe is a Ghanaian name. So I don't actually know the meaning of it, if there's any meaning. But yeah, my father's originally from Ghana. So I have about as typical or traditional a Ghanaian name as you can get.
So Ghanaian dad, German mother, and lived in Lesotho, is that right?
Yeah, that's where I grew up. That's where I went
now
to
in
school.
South Africa, you've done it all.
Yeah, no, you get to see the
but
world.
But like Barack Obama, I mean, it's pretty close. Indonesia and wherever else, Hawaii maybe,
Yeah, there's a particular era of Africa's history, and with a country like Ghana having been, the first country to gain independence, during the early years, Kwame Nkrumah and the party sent a lot of students overseas, to Europe and to the US to gain skills to be able to run the company. And that's how my father ended up in Germany. And yeah, met my mother, and I was born. So it is, it's one of those, I can't take credit for it because, it just happened to be that way.
Okay. But you also I found this really fascinating, as I tweeted about it earlier on, that you're the white sheep of the family. What does that mean?
Well, in essence, and it's always funny in a country like South Africa that continues to still grapple with, the idea of race and race's relevance or race's place in identity and, kind of making sense of who you are as a person. I have an older sister. My father was married before he married my mother, and I have younger siblings. My mother passed away when I was a baby, so he remarried after, and had my three younger siblings. I've got two younger brothers and a younger sister, and I'm the only person who had a white mother, which means that, my father's West African dark. And most of my family are extremely dark. So I spent a lifetime, particularly when I started coming to South Africa. I was in varsity in Durban, where, I'd introduce my younger brother, and I go, "This is my brother," and people go, "No." I'm like, "What do you mean? This is my brother?" And they go, "No, it can't be your brother." So yeah.
How did you feel about it? I mean, could you understand that? Well, obviously you knew your mother was different, so I understand that part. But in real terms, how did you feel about having to explain that all the time?
The beauty of growing up in a place like Lesotho is that I didn't really have to worry about that. It only started coming to the fore when I went to university in Durban. Before that, and growing up in a small country, in a small city like Maseru, I'm my father's son. So, when I go to most places and somebody sees my surname, even today, they go, "Oh, are you Frank's son?" So it was not, my father also brought us up as a family. So, I don't say my stepbrother or my half brother. Those are my brothers and sisters, like anybody else, if you shared parents. So it was never a factor for me. It was never it was never something that came up at home or in the community I grew up in. It really is only something I had to make sense of when I came to South Africa. I mean, the first time I came to South Africa and I heard the concept colored, I didn't know what that was.
Because you made the point, and I read this, that at varsity you certainly were not colored.
But
for 90% of people, they would.
But people go, "You're colored," and I go, "Okay, first of all, what is that?" Because it's not like Swaziland where there is a kind of like a mixed race community in Swaziland. That's they're Swazi. Lesotho doesn't have that. So my whole life, like it was never a feature. My father was banned in South Africa, so my knowledge of Joburg was the airport. Every Christmas flying to relatives in Germany. And, you slept in the airport and then flew out.
En route to Germany.
So the first time I came to Joburg, I was 17, 18 years old with friends of mine from high school. And that's why, like, for me, it was, and it's taken me a while. And it's one of those things that it's a constant, as you're going through the process of finding your own identity, coming into a space where now all of a sudden the features that you haven't considered. So I never considered my complexion to have any kind of impact on who I am as a person and how I identify myself. And then coming to a space where at an age, going to university, you're 19, you're 20 years old, as a human being, you're just trying to make sense of everything. And then add this, you get this added feature that, oh, you're this or you're that, because your complexion is like this or your hair texture is like that.
So you're suddenly pigeonholed. Yeah, indeed. All right. If you wish to, we're chatting to Kojo Baffoe, the editor of the Destiny Man magazine. I'll pick out some of the SMSs to 34701. 34701. If you can SMS at a cost of 2 rands. You can tweet to me, besides all those who said they're going to be definitely listening. And I've got that Jonathan as well amongst them, and some of the others too. But also, if you wish to Facebook, you can do that too, just like my page, which allows you to do that. Let's talk about you now in the present tense. I mean, what are the skills you have? Because we all have skills, and we think we have skills. So if I told you it's like a job application, you said, give me your 5 great working qualities.
I don't know. I think I've perfected this idea. So there's the idea of jack of all trades, master of none. And I have over my working life found myself in a situation where being a jack of all trades is not necessarily a negative thing, So from a working perspective, in terms of sectors, I've worked across multiple sectors. And what that has enabled me to do is, one, do the job I'm doing now. When I got to Destiny Man and started getting into the work, I realized that in a very weird way, the fact that I've done everything from running a shop selling hair products to directing fashion shows to, project managing a project at the post office, have positioned me and put me in a place where I can work with, I've got the skills I need to edit a magazine like Destiny Man because it's so broad. So my working background and my working career started working for my father, who had a management consulting company and had various other, so publishing, insurance, etc. And so I grew up working in that space. So a lot of my skills, I guess the foundation to my skills came from being able to work in that place. And even the writing, writing is something that I've always enjoyed doing. I was always taught that, if you're trying to make sense of something in your head, writing it down, by and large, generally helps the process of making sense.
First, write it down first, and then articulate it.
Because just the act of writing it down forces you to start to kind of put, to shape it and understand exactly what it is. So I've always written, and part of that was also, sitting working on a 200-page report on small business in Lesotho. Okay. And editing that, or
so you've done, and that's why probably in the point you made, you've done so many different things, and that's ideal for a magazine like Destiny Man, because, well, you asked me, when you left a copy, by the way, I should tell you this, Kojo just left a copy on my table here, and of course I've got the magazine in advance, because for me it's a magazine that I must listen, read in the same way that I hope people say, well, they can't not listen to the show. They're not saying it's a destination for me. I just have to do it. So how do you feel? I mean, sort of being at the helm of a magazine like this, because I'm saying that you talk about and you talk to some of the most strategically important people in this country, isn't it?
We do, but I think one of the things I've realized, when you talk about skills, is I work with content, I work with information in whatever form. And, I continue to be fascinated by and, in a cliched sense, a student of kind of society and people. And my job is really to try and understand the person we're talking to. And, it is, we are talking to some of the, like you're saying, some of, key people in this country and more across the continent. But I think more importantly is we're also talking to and we're also highlighting the work of those who, by and large, will be left out in other spaces. Because it's the people behind the scenes that build a company, that build the economy, that that contribute to that process. And we are talking to a lot of those people. So we're talking to the small business people, we're talking to the professionals, and we're sharing their stories with them. I sincerely believe that part of what we do is to basically demonstrate that we're all capable. Because if you see, if I see Ashraf and I look at where Ashraf is today, Ashraf comes from my street. He comes from the same kind of neighborhood I come from. He comes from the same kind of circumstance I come from. And so Ashraf then serves as a great example. And, for me, I like the word example rather than role model, but it's a perfect example that, do you know what? I'm just like him. He's no better, no worse than I am. He's he's no smarter, no dumber than I am. And look what he's achieved. Therefore, I am capable and I can achieve the same.
And then you want others to think the same way. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Because I saw that you said that when you do get a chance to read, you love to read, biographies, right?
Yes, absolutely. I every year since I was a child, like every year I'd have like an author I'm into or a particular type of, particular genre of writing I'm into. And I got into biographies and autobiographies about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's the one thing I do consistently to this day. Learning from other people's journeys. I think somebody said, the fool learns from their mistakes. The wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So it's also trying to understand that and trying to get insight into other people's journeys, which also kind of, I find it encouraging and I find it inspiring because of the fact that when you look at somebody's trials and tribulations as they're going, you realize that they're human beings just like you. They've gone on a journey just like you have. And
but do you find, because it's something that I talk to my kids about, where they'll get someone home to come and watch whatever, say soccer or rugby on TV, and they'll chat about that for 1 hour or 2 hours. And I would say, like, okay, that's great. Now what does this person do? Like, what are they studying? It's like, well, he's at varsity, but I don't really know. It's like, what a wasted opportunity. Why don't you talk to them? Do you find that people don't do that enough? Sort of, whether it's in the magazine, whether it's meeting people at functions, they don't take the time. You've had Tokyo Sehwali on the cover. You've had Becky Tsele as well. You've had many others as well. Where they don't really take the time to find out more about these people.
Well, I think because we continue to focus on the doing. So, your job title becomes you. So, when you, and I'm sure you'll have it, you go to a function and you're a job title. It's not Ashraf. I'm not really interested in Ashraf. It's like, what's your job title? And you're there because of your job title. So I do think that to a certain extent we let that influence interaction a bit too much. I've learned some of the most amazing kind of life lessons from the guy putting in petrol in your car, and you just kind of lean against the car and you have a random conversation with him. 2 weeks ago, I had a very random conversation with two guys in Woolworths, like the tellers, on Tokolosis.
Okay.
Like just like an absolutely random conversation, and I enjoy that. I think that's where the enjoyment comes. So I do think that with the focus on doing and with the focus on this, kind of the label, we stop connecting as human beings. We stop connecting as people.
Okay, that's fascinating. Well, he's also been described as a retired poet. Talk about labels. Can you really be retired when you're nowhere near 70 or 80 or whatever? I don't know. We'll find out. I'll get to the callers, Muzikaya, and the rest. I'll take your calls in a moment. 0891 104207. 0891 104207. Chatting to Kojo Baffoe, the editor of the Destiny Man magazine. We'll do that right after this.
As part of the drive to create jobs in South Africa, Proudly South African will be hosting the 2012 Buy Local Summit at Emperor's Palace on Monday, 26 November. SAFM will be broadcasting live from the venue, where delegates will hear from captains of industry and government decision makers such as Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davies. Local businesses will also showcase their proudly South African products and services at an expo. Join us for the Proudly South African Buy Local Summit on Monday, live from the Emperor's Palace Convention Center. SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader.
So, great minds think unlike. And I do mean unlike as opposed to alike, right? Come and see why Vavi, Mazibuko, Naidu and Mantashio don't always get along. The Gathering, a place where different views are encouraged. So on Friday, the 23rd of November, that's next week, of course, spend the day with people shaping South Africa, brought to you by the Daily Maverick. And you can book on their website, dailymaverick.co.za.
Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Now we'll talk about the retired poet in a few minutes as I continue putting Kojo Baffoe in the spotlight. Let's get a couple of calls, however. Ashanti, we'll talk to you in a second. Shabir as well. In Vujikaya from the Eastern Cape, hello. I'm very good. Haven't chatted in a while, eh?
Yeah, busy. Kojo, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Unlike Ashraf, I read your magazine. I don't listen to it.
I do read it, by the way. But anyway, go ahead.
Look, Kojo,
Yeah.
I need to throw a couple of suggestions to you.
Okay.
And maybe close it to the question very briefly. One, I work for the MEC for local government in the Eastern Cape.
Okay.
And one of the things is responsible for is traditional circumcision in terms of traditional affairs. And is also responsible for municipalities.
Okay.
And I want us to have one of your events. I don't know whether it's called Power of 40. In one of the Eastern Cape towns, where we talk about role of men in building better communities or fighting fraud and corruption.
Okay.
And we can also do something about traditional circumcision, because our young brothers are dying out there. And I think if we do something, we can contribute towards ending that.
Yeah.
We can discuss it later, because I think there's something that we can do. The last question I have is, what happened? I saw you working with Black Magazine, and it took some lull, and to me it took a nosedive. I don't know, but what happened to it? And your current magazine is not defining itself in the space of Black Men Magazine, but the content suggests that. But what is the strategy? What is going on with Men Magazine? That's true.
Okay, got that in Vuzika. Thanks for that call. I'll take a couple in one go, then you get a chance to respond. By the way, somebody by the name of Klechle tweeting saying, please tell Mr. Baffoe that he is so good looking. And then saying, no kidding, as opposed to kidding. Okay, I thought I'll just make the point. He was a model, by the way, for a guy called Duval, who I happen to know a long time ago. We'll talk about that some other time. Shabir in Lesotho, hi.
Hi, today much for friend Kojo. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good stuff, man.
Very good, man. I'm actually calling from. I'm actually living in Lesotho. I think I know Kojo's two younger siblings.
Okay.
The guys. But I just want to say basically a big heads up to the good work and stuff. I think we'd like to actually see a bit more of his magazine in Lesotho with some young entrepreneurship and some people coming up and a few more articles on young entrepreneurship.
Okay, cool. But thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, got that. Nice one there. Just can't hear that too clear, but you got the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
Magazine in Lesotho. Ashanti in Durban. Hi. Haven't chatted as well in a long time. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Long time.
Yep.
Hi, my brother. How are you?
Good, and you?
As I
Oh, how are you, my
was
sister?
Be on, one of the things I did was run to my office and sit down.
I feel isolated. You guys calling each other brother and
because
sister.
I have the kind of
I
amazing,
know.
fortunate spaces where we meet at any place, any time, any event. We've never been kind of stuck up about the arts and culture, and you know. So he has this way, this fluidity of being at the highest place where the so-called well-heeled are, and also, I mean, he can sit like we did in Ghana a couple of months ago, in the middle of students, and we just getting along, at the African Business Leaders Conference. But we've always had a nice rapport every time we met because it's always years in between. But one of the things that, Kojo, I remember when you were commenting at one point was, when you insisted that people can't just accept that talent alone is enough for Africa, that people have to consider their training. And, at the time I was listening to you, of course, I look at your beautiful face and think, wow, this brother is just amazing. But the other thing also, Kojo and Ashraf, is that all my male friends and male colleagues, when they have a birthday, I make sure they get Destiny magazine. Because men don't necessarily want to buy Destiny, some of them around me. So I make sure that they get it as a push, that they need to be reading Ashraf, not listening to Destiny.
Okay, well, they can do both as well.
Thank you very much.
And well done as usual.
Thank you very much.
Ashante, by the way, lots of people said I need to put you in the spotlight, and they want to know when you're going to join a political party. But okay, she's gone. We've had lots of people saying, when is she going to join a political party or start one anyway? Okay, anything you want to respond there to some of those?
I think with regards to. I think with regards to the events, I mean, we do have a series of events that happen around the country, and they are happening more and more. So we're anticipating that being a significant part of what we do, because you have to engage on the different levels. A lot of times they tend to be sponsor driven. So, it's always about kind of your partner in the process, where they want to go. But I think, what he talked about around circumcision, etc., and kind of just the idea of manhood, is an important one. But he asked about black, and I mean, I think our running joke was my first interview after I joined Destiny Man.
Yes,
the first question was around Black magazine. Basically, I mean, I left. I was with Black for about 10 months, which was in 2008, and then I left. I mean, I was the founding editor, and then I left, and the people, there were 4 people who put the magazine together and owned the magazine, and 2 of them have started the magazine again, and I think it's been running for about a year and a half now. So it's still out there, and it's still running. In terms of the positioning as, black, targeting black men, etc., we view it as, so the way we view Destiny Man, it's about a South African man. And it's a particular type of South African man. So it's not, we don't approach content on the basis of, okay, is it this race or that race, but more just a particular type of South African man, and that's how we try to approach all our content. Which is why when you flip through the magazine, you'll see it doesn't lean any particular way. We try to be as all encompassing and as broad as possible.
Yeah, I mean, my quick sense, it certainly doesn't do that, but what it does do, so it doesn't sort of define color like maybe Drum magazine. I mean, this is an expectation that I would have, but it certainly does. Sort of pitch itself towards achievers. So that's my sense.
Yeah,
either those who've achieved already and those that want to achieve.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's looking at the country, and it's looking at the demographics, and whether we like it or not, we will always be part of the discourse on what it is to be a man in South Africa today. It's whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that is a conversation we are a part of because of our positioning.
How important is the cover then? Because if people say whatever 60% of sales is depend on the cover, then who do you put in the cover in your magazine compared to Miss South Africa, Miss World, and whoever else is in the female covers? Yeah,
but it's an ongoing. Every cover is debated and thought through extensively, and it's not. There's no exact science to it, but it's the balance between who we're talking to and who we feel needs to be talked to and talked about. Business is a very important thread in terms of what we do. So we consider ourselves our business and lifestyle magazine, but what sets us apart from our competitors would be the focus on business, and. Yeah, like this idea that the cover sells the magazine, and I mean, I get a lot of flack sometimes, and I get a lot of plaudits in terms of the cover, but I would like to get to the position where, when you see the masthead and when you see that it's Destiny Man, have faith in the fact that the content in there is relevant, and even if you don't agree with the person on the cover, a magazine is 100 and something pages.
Okay, so Muzikaya, you should need to know that. That's exactly what I do, just by the way. We're going to chat more to Kojo Baffoe, the editor of Destiny Man. I'll read some of the SMS. Somebody's suggesting we need to get you to recite poetry. So you've been warned. You've got like a few minutes to think about that. Let's get to the news headlines now. Right, Kojo Baffoe with me. I'll read some of the SMSs too. So somebody said, two things. I mean, one is the fact that you're this retired poet, and someone said, please recite poetry. Let's maybe answer the retired poet. How do you describe, you describe yourself as a retired poet?
Yeah, I describe myself as one. I mean, look, it really is one of those things where I've been writing poetry for most of my life. And about 98, 99, I discovered there was the birth of a little poetry scene, and I discovered that you could actually get up on a stage and mumble your poetry, and people, a couple of people would listen. And at kind of, I guess, call it my height, I was very focused on building a career as a poet. So I used to perform, I used to write, I was looking to record. So I was looking to build what is a proper career as a poet. And, there's also the day where you wake up and you go, like, I write poetry, but there's the day you wake up and you go, I am a poet.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, my priorities changed, and also my focus and my appetite for poetry waned to a certain extent. I mean, I went from writing every day to struggling to write for a year.
Okay.
And then decided one day that actually, do you know what, I can do lots of things. I'm shifting my focus. And so I call myself a retired poet. You
don't get paid as much unless you're in Mzwaki Mbuli, or I don't know whether Don Matera gets it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it, is that, it's finding the platforms. And for me, maybe it's my business background. But if I'm going to do something and I'm going to say this is my career and this is what I'm trying to build, then I'm going to apply the principles, I learned in running businesses and in studying business to whatever it is I do. Because for me, at the end of the day, it's about the life I want to create for myself and my family.
So we're gonna maybe bring you out of retirement and get you to recite 3 lines if you can. But just before you do that, just some SMSs I want to just read. Kojo, congratulations from Manyakalo. We were neighbors at Florida in Maseru.
Wow. Yeah.
We were about 11 years old. Wow. Another one. Let me just see. There's something about Europe in the Nuremberg now that's completely unrelated here. Kwadwo, now a boy born on Monday in Ghana will always be Kwadwo. Okay, the original Ashanti spelling, no matter how many spelling comes up with it. Okay, somebody's debating with you on this one. Why doesn't Destiny Men have a regular space dedicated to the experiences and contributions of non-heterosexual men? And Ashraf, please ask your guest to tell us just one of the naughty stories while at Machabang High School before I spill the beans. And of course, it doesn't say who it is, right? There's a couple more, but maybe you can just answer those first here.
Well, I think let me talk on the non-heterosexual. If you are running a business, and I'm coming to talk to you about the business you're running and your journey as a business, I don't think sexuality comes into play. So I don't think we're not sitting and going, okay, well, we're shying away from anything. But when I talk to a heterosexual person, I don't go, okay, are you heterosexual?
What's your orientation?
Because that's who we target a professional business person or a professional person who's a man, and we engage with all aspects of the life. So. I'm not really sure how one would then go, okay, I'm going to tailor content for, a homosexual versus a heterosexual person.
But I suppose it goes back to the discussion. Sometimes we debated the idea of, Women's Day, Women's Month, Disability Month. Is that the way to go, or should it just be woven into the normal scheme of things in life? And I'm sure your magazine will cover someone who may well be, for example, homosexual, who may be very successful, and that'll come through in the discussion. The fact that he has a slightly different orientation to maybe the majority is almost irrelevant, as to be set aside as a separate page.
I mean, I do believe that. I mean, I have homosexual friends who read the magazine, and they're going to read the magazine on the basis of whether the content is relevant to their life. In terms of their sexuality, I don't think sexuality comes into play in most of our content. And I mean, I'm not sure how one would gear content to target, for example, have a page aside for a homosexual man.
Okay.
I think the important thing, and I wrote an article on it when I first started around this concept of masculinity, and there's a clinical psychologist who I tap into a lot of the times called Hamadi Gometsi, and he talks about this idea of masculinities as a plural. And, a lot of my thinking has been influenced by, in talking and engaging with him, where there's different types of masculinity. So there's no singular one, it's masculinities. And how he manifests that is different. But, at the end of the day, that aspect, I don't think that aspect should be held up as, okay, this is what's wrong, or this is what's right, or this is how we must separate. I think, we're all men. We're all
right,
men.
we're going to ask you about the naughty story before somebody spills the beans in a second,
stories.
and to read poetry. I just want to get probably the last call I can take for now. Z in Joburg. Hi, Z.
Ashraf, how are you?
I'm very good.
Good, thanks. Hi, Kojo.
How's it?
I have just one question for you. Hi. I read a lot of your magazines, Destiny Men as well as Destiny Women.
Yeah.
But my question is, would you guys in the near future think of maybe introducing a magazine for teen boys and teen girls? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a magazine is just focusing on the population that's just started work, the early 20s. But what about the 15-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, the kids that are not, covered by your magazine?
Yeah.
Both the men and the women magazine.
You think it'll work?
I'll
Just
listen on the radio.
Z, your thought? You think there's a market for that?
I really think there is, because in South Africa currently we don't have a magazine that is as good as Destiny Man as well as Destiny Women. In all the magazines we have Glamour for Kids, which is not really addressing the core issues that this country needs to address. And we have 17, which is an overseas magazine, but it's also not addressing what we need to address in South Africa. And Destiny Men and Women are addressing those issues, but we are not catering for that group.
Interesting
for
one.
that
I think
population.
it's an interesting concept. I may even talk about it on the media show on Sunday, so we'll see about that. Thanks for that call, Z. Just your response to that one?
Well, look, I can't speak on what the business is going to be doing. I think it's an interesting one. I would have questions first, particularly in terms of, for example, who would be the target market of it. Because, it's all well and good to say we need to fill a particular gap, but who's actually going to buy the magazine? I know Indalo Media, which publishes Destiny and Destiny Man, had Teen Sport before I joined.
That's right.
And I think one of the challenges often is we forget that a magazine, like everything else, is a business, and a lot of the revenue, I guess, comes from advertising. And with something like a teen magazine, where's the advertising going to come from? One has to look at who's going to want to speak to that market, and therefore, be able to go to them to get advertising. And so I think it's an interesting one, but there are a lot of questions that would have to be answered, like advertising, who's going to buy it, how is it going to be positioned, etc. It's an interesting
Okay, but interesting one. Destiny Men, Destiny Women, starting first, and then let's go down.
Destiny Kids.
Indeed, yeah. Okay, Zanelli's saying, Ashraf is going to make Kojo recite a poem. Don't you just love radio? It's almost an instruction. So please recite the poem before I forget.
I'm wondering who Zanella is.
But it's Zanella Sabella.
Okay, yeah. She's my colleague.
Okay, you better go for it.
Do I even have poems? Okay, I haven't been writing poems.
The retired
in years.
poem back out of retirement.
Yeah, no. So I have something I scribbled when my daughter was born. I just found it on my phone, so I'll do that. It's called The Angel. Descended from a long line of angels, she has journeyed from realms beyond to create beauty in our lives. She is the angel, a creature of infinite beauty and power. She is breath and tears and laughter. Love indefinable in its being, felt in its existence. I have found a truer form, one that does not come with an epiphany or a momentous moment when the earth stood still and the universe opened up to reveal the true mysteries. So yeah,
and he's all emotional, I think.
That's it's not complete, but that's the closest
all right.
I have to.
Lovely. Well, maybe check it.
Accessible.
Dallas Rickson Jolly,
yes,
Facebooking, saying Kojo Baffoe is a brilliant mind, and the man has a generous spirit. So lovely stuff. Then Harlan van Beek saying, how does he see himself as the editor of Destiny Man? What's his vision for the magazine? Maybe to a degree you've answered that. Mabaksa Chaka saying, what did you study? So glad that he mentioned Lesotho. Most guys who make it big in South Africa do not want to be associated with Lesotho. I'm proud of him and will respect him just for that. I wish him well. So there you are.
Yeah, I studied, in terms of what I studied, I did a BCom. I majored in economics, marketing and business administration. So nothing to do with the media. I did do a. I think
And this is where you are now. I mean,
yeah, I think
lessons there for all of us.
I think I did do I think it was a certificate or something in journalism at Damlin. But to be honest, my wife worked there, so I got a discount, and I thought, why not? You know, I had to drive her in on Saturday mornings anyway.
Okay.
In terms of Lesotho, you know, I come from, you know, my roots in multiple places, and I always take pride in the fact that each space has helped contribute to who I've become, and my family is still in Lesotho. You know, that's home to a certain extent. And,
of course. Yeah.
And I still go there regularly, and that's where my home base is.
We've got about 2 minutes to go, so a couple of sort of rapid fire questions. Lots of people saying you liked autobiographies. What's the one autobiography that you would love to recommend to someone?
Wow. Well, I'd start with the first one I ever read, which is the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay.
I told to Alex Haley.
Yeah.
And that I read at 11 years old. So
okay. And you said it made a great impression.
That kind of Malcolm X himself and kind of his life and his journey.
By the way, watched this movie again last week.
Are you serious?
You know just how great he is.
I can't watch it. I watched it twice when it came out, and I can't watch it because you know how it's going to end.
Okay. Sipho Hotsik Mabuse used to call me Malcolm X when I had rounded glasses, but that's another debate. Okay, so that's the one. If you had to write your autobiography, what would you title it?
A Simple Man.
Just a simple man. That's like such an undersell, don't you think so?
I work on the premise that, you know, I am a man no more extraordinary, ordinary than the next man. Just trying to do the best that I can.
Okay. Leadership lessons for you? You're at the helm. You lead a leading magazine. Leadership advice to those listening in?
For me, the big one, which I gained, I guess, also from my father in different spaces, is you know, never get your team to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself.
Okay. By the way, Nadine Woodley is saying, why again are you the white sheep of the family? I'll answer that because we don't have much time, because his father was married to a white woman. The rest of the family were black, mainly from Ghana. And of course, she died and he was the only one who was whitish or colorish, and the rest of them were all black. Okay. What about best lesson you've learned in your working career? Or best advice, I should say, you've received?
Wow. Yeah. Work hard. I think this idea of working, when we talk about working smart, we lose sight of the fact that you need to work hard. And, you know, it's better to build something gradually than, you know, like easy money. Easy money goes as easily. So, you know, it's better to build a career than build
Worst advice?
I can't think of anything.
Maybe you didn't take it, and
I
thank goodness.
Probably didn't listen.
Right. Lastly, I mean, 2 things. Unfinished business for you. What is your unfinished business?
I couldn't tell you what my unfinished business is. Just like I do know, I want to continue writing. I want to be able to write books. I want to be able to write across the board. So there's a book that I've been trying to finish for a year and a half. So probably that's the one thing that'd be nice to get off my shoulder.
Okay. And lastly, a quote that you can share with us that we'd all take home?
Well, I actually got 2. And
okay.
This I actually wrote down. I mean, the one is simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, which is by Da Vinci. And I've just always loved that quote. But another quote I try to live by is, a truly rich man is one whose children run into his arms when his hands are empty. That for me is the kind of the quote I try to live by, and I've tried to live by.
Lovely, and I'll probably tweet that as well later on, indeed. Kojo Baffoe, great chatting to us. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for allowing us to put you in the spotlight. Pictures, you'll see it on Facebook as well as on Twitter. That's just the way it is now. You sort of have to come up with makeup, even if you're not planning for that. Let's get to Radio VUCA now. 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 Let's get to Radio